Your self-talk is so important. I say acceptance, your self-talk, what you tell yourself day in and day out, prayer, and the belief in something greater than yourself, greater than the conditions that you found yourself in. That belief to me is probably the most powerful thing in the world, is belief.
Hold your applause, I ain't done yet. Immortality got me weary since Kobe died. I got this watch on my arm, but I'll never know my time. So my focus lies in my work, which got me in overdrive. I can't break for a day. I'm in a maze of my mind, I can't make an escape.
Hey man, so we back with another episode of Decoding Two Sides of the System. Man, it's been a journey. Before we start, I want to say my subscribers just took a tremendous jump, and it's only God and hard work and consistency. But I want to say thank you to all my new subscribers. It's been a whirlwind, like a couple thousand a day. Usually, I literally can track it like, oh, okay, and tell y'all thank you. But to all these new subscribers that's growing up, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Today we got Bruce Bryan on the channel. Man, first off, this is somebody's story that's just, it really touches my heart, and it really puts the dynamic of knowing like what goes on with African Americans within the judicial, within the system, and just how some states and just some places are built to really keep African Americans and keep poverty people where they at. And his story is one of a kind, but not only is his story one of a kind, he's a one of a kind person. We've been chopping it up a little bit. We've been trying to get this type of content out, but he be busy, I be busy, but it's God's time and when we got it right. But Bruce Bryan, he's somebody that was wrongfully convicted, did, if I'm not mistaken, over 20 years, and in the penitentiary, and I'm gonna let him introduce himself and let him get into more of that, but that's just the opening, man. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, brother, and my apologies for the delay. It's just been, this 1 year home after 29 years incarcerated has been a whirlwind, working diligently to get other brothers home and free. Actually, I just got some good news today from the attorney, law professor Steve Zyman, who was instrumental in me receiving executive clemency here in New York State. Governor Kathy Hochul just granted clemency to 13 people today.
Love.
And two of them were convicted for homicides. So it's a testament to what our brother Brian Stevenson, renowned attorney, likes to say, that each of us are better than the worst thing we've ever done.
I like that.
I believe that the nature of a crime could never change, but oftentimes people do. And we say we live in a world where mercy and chances should be given. Then we got to believe in our people and believe that they can be better than they were, or than their worst decisions that they've ever made. So, brother, it's an honor to be here and share with you, and just be able to kick it and share with one of my brothers, because this means a lot to me. A lot of people I believe that because I was on the big podcast that I wouldn't do the little podcast, right? The ones that are not as big as the Joe Rogans. But for me, when I see a young brother like you trying to, spread the word and like a voice in the wilderness, trying to inform our people and educate them and uplift them, I feel like I have a moral obligation to be there for you and to share my story in hopes that it will inspire and educate and inform others.
I love that. And first off, I want to say I appreciate that, because some people, as they start growing and as they get those big opportunities, they don't take their hand and feed back and lead their people. I did a pod, and the podcast that I have out now, and I was really looking at Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali said, like, I would never leave my people. I would never leave the ones who got me here, the people who are where I came from, where my family was originated, my ancestors and things. So whenever you say that, I think that's a character trait, because that shows not only do you understand, that you have the ability to be on bigger platforms, but for you to still dig down and just give somebody like me an opportunity, I want to say I truly appreciate that, for real, man.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you too. And it's an honor to be here, man. You mentioned Muhammad Ali. I want to give a shout out to his lovely daughters, Maya Ali and Kalia Ali, who are good friends of mine.
Okay, for sure.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
good people.
Lovely ladies, for sure. I
And,
want to.
and and Kalia Ali is in the movement with Jason
Mm,
Flom to free wrongfully convicted people, to free people that deserve a second chance. So shout out to Kalia Ali and Jason Flom for the extraordinary work that they're doing. And the spirit of Muhammad Ali still lives. She's a testament, and her siblings are a testament to that.
for sure. I love. I love that. I love it, and it always will. It's definitely somebody who I look up to tremendously. But I want to kind of open it up, and I kind of want to get my viewers to like let them know what happened. How did we get here? So just give them a little rundown, and then I got some questions that I want to tap into with the mental part.
Well, I grew up in South Jamaica, Queens, by way of Antigua and Dominica, West Indies, where my parents are from. And coming up during the crack era, 80s, 90s, it was a time when I was becoming of age. So during that time, so much was happening during the war on drugs, which was really a war on black and brown people and marginalized people. The system doing what it was designed to do. I was arrested and charged with murder and convicted for a drug-related homicide. Everyone knows I did not do, including my attorney, the prosecutors, everyone involved in my case, the police. So I was sentenced to 37 and a half to life for murder. However, doing the work while I was incarcerated and not allowing myself to serve time, but being committed to allowing time to serve me, I was able to thrive and work and get my eyes, get the governor's eyes to look at my situation. And last year, I was granted executive clemency after 29 years incarcerated.
I love that. I love that. And man, first off, your story is one of a kind, is one of one. But I also want to say your mindset is one on one, and I want to tap into that because you said you did the time, you didn't allow the time to do you. And in today's time, as people of our race and just some people that's not even our race, just abroad, they allow their environments to determine their future. They allow different barriers to hold them in. And just doing my research and hearing you say that your mental mindset was okay. I'm locked up and I didn't do this, but you didn't allow all that to impact you. Instead, you say, you know what? I'm gonna take the abilities and the understanding and I'm gonna go learn. I'm gonna go read stuff I've never read. I'm gonna go get the knowledge that I need. So whenever I'm done or whenever I get the opportunity, God is gonna grant me that faith and I'm gonna be knowledge about everything that I need to know. So
Absolutely.
that's why I feel where you said that. Now that's my intake. You tell me, say if I got that right.
One of the things that I've learned early on through reading and studying self-help books and just doing a great deal of introspection and reflection on my own life and on history and the history of our people, you begin to understand that where you are doesn't have to define who you are, nor what you can become. So when you take away the idea of being in prison and you say, well, I'm in a situation where I can't be physically free, but what can I do mentally, right? What can do? Because the reality is in life, there's suffering. In life, things happen, right? Sometimes bad things happen to good people, right? And good things happen to so-called bad people. But the reality is we're all part of humanity and no one deserves to be in a cage. So I decided that I'm going to shift that mindset, looking at myself as being in a cage, and I'm going to look at myself in a controlled environment. And that cell is going to be a study hall for me. It's going to be some place where I sit down and I get into the books, where I sit down and I read books like Left to Tell by Immaculée Ilibagiza or Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. Or I read books like I Write What I Like by Steve Bantu Biko, who was one of my favorite people in history because he talked about the Black consciousness movement. I believe that when you begin to raise your consciousness, you can transcend wherever you are. So when you change the way you look at things, things change the way that they look. And you see that cell as a study hall. You see that yard, that prison yard, as a place where you go to get in shape. You see that church in the prison where that chapel where you go and say, I'm going to nurture my spirit and nurture my soul. And you take that time and you say, I'm still going to engage in time management. I'm not just going to do time, right? But I'm going to make time serve me in a way that I can benefit and I can engage in self-development. I can engage in focus. I can engage in reorganizing the way that I think, the way that I view things, and changing that mindset. because everything starts with mindset, right? Begin to ask ourselves these questions. I remember one day sitting in the cell and posting up affirmations on the wall, and a brother had asked me what I was doing. And I said I was preparing my life, right? And he said, "What do you mean by preparing your life?" I said, I'm preparing my life by putting things on the wall that are meaningful to me, that are going to help me grow and prepare my life for when I get out of here. Because I never accepted having a life sentence. I never accepted that I was serving a life sentence because I knew I was wrongfully convicted. And I said, I trust that God will that truth will prevail. And I kept my spirit and my faith, and I kept my hope, because whenever I saw someone that I knew that winded up committing suicide or winded up falling victim to drugs inside the prison and ODing, I could always reflect on when that person was all right, and as the years went on, where that person began to lose hope. So hope was the last thing to go before a person usually died or gave up on themselves. You see, and I realized how powerful hope and faith is. So I always held on to hope. I always tried to reach beyond the prison bars, beyond the prison wall, and communicate and network with people who saw my humanity and didn't see me as a number. People who saw me as a person and not just a project, and
I love that. I love that
understood
for
that we
sure.
were all connected.
Man, what, bro? All connected, and I don't judge nobody in those situations like that. That's one of the things I live my life on. Is non-judgment. My grandfather taught me that when I was a kid. He said, you know, no matter if you meet a man or a woman, no matter what circumstances, no matter what they did, you know, you look within what's on their face. Like you try to know the inner defined of a human being. Like you don't want to look at somebody and think that you know them just off of their situation, because you don't know what situation, and everybody not as fortunate as you. But I want to talk about your mindset to that, and you know, being incarcerated, and because there's things that people haven't talked about, you know, with you, and you kind of spoke on. I heard you speak on the Joe Rogan podcast, and you said, you know, you would be in a cell, or you'll be talking to somebody one day, and then you know, you walking by and they hanging from a ceiling, you know, they done hung themselves. Or you also have these people that's drugs are so easy to get in jail, you know, they overdosing off fentanyl. You know, you talk to somebody one day, and then, you know, they just strung out and they dead, and they said the other day. The mental part of that, to see that type of thing every day. Tell me how you interpret it, like, damn, like this is crazy. But then what you told yourself to get through that.
You know, that's a good question, because I often sat and I thought about what resilience meant. And what were the characteristics of resilience? And is someone naturally born with it, or are they born with it and they develop it as life goes on? You know, I'm a firm believer in that you can develop your resilience. You know, children are resilient, but as you go on, you can strategically change your mind to change your life. And what I mean by that is, there are a few things that I think resilient people have, or that they acquire over the course of their life. And it's for three reasons. One is because people acknowledge and understand that I had to understand that suffering happens, and I wasn't exempt. Suffering happens, and in the world that we live in, atrocities take place, as we see going on across the world, in the Middle East, in different places. We have to accept it and try to find a way within ourselves to find the wherewithal to say, we still have to move on. We still have to go on. We still have the capacity to build, because the time that matters is now. You know, in that moment, what do we do, right? Do we deal with our grief and our pain, and then we get up and dust ourselves off and say, and make up our mind? And that's why those affirmations were so powerful, because I would read them every morning on the wall, right? And I would internalize them. Things like resilience, things like fortitude. And I would say to myself,
I wish I could show you my wall. I wish I could show you my wall right now.
yeah.
I'm looking at it right, man. I got so much stuff on there, but keep going. I'm sorry to
And I
interrupt.
said that
Just you're talking. Yeah, go
when
ahead.
we say, and I study scripture a lot, and I believe that when God says we're created in the image and likeness of God, He wasn't talking about just you and I. He was talking about the person in the cell, the person that we see on the street that may be unhoused. He was talking about the substance abuser. He was talking about the person that was convicted for whatever they were convicted for, right? He was talking about mankind.
Right.
And when you begin to see yourself in that image and likeness, you know that you have the the wherewithal within you to overcome. So that self-talk, a lot of people say, man, you in there talking to yourself? I say, yeah, right? I used to prepare in my mirror to speak in school and different things like that. So I would always give myself positive self-talk, because guess what? Ain't too many people in prison there to encourage you. You got to encourage yourself.
Right.
So your self-talk is so important, right? I say acceptance, your self-talk, what you tell yourself day in and day out, prayer, and the belief in something greater than yourself, greater than the conditions that you found yourself in. That belief to me is probably the most powerful thing in the world, is belief.
For
Because
sure.
when people believe something, they'll sacrifice their life to achieve what it is that they believe in. And I knew that I believed one day that I would overcome my situation. I believed that I wouldn't die in prison. I believed that I would make it out of prison. I believed it. I had to believe
Right.
it in order for myself to see me walking and through it. Right? I believe that although there was a long hallway full of fire, that some way, somehow, my intentions to get to the other end would allow me to find the way and the manner in which I get from this end to that end. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to get there. Right? And I think that
Right.
when you begin to live with intentions day in and day out, you begin to see your resolve and your resilience build up. Those times when you find yourself weak and vulnerable, it's okay, because we're human and we're made up of emotions. So you take those deep
Right.
breaths, man. You connect to your breath and you meditate, and through meditation and prayer and through your self-talk, you can change your mind. And I really believe the law of attraction will allow you to
Me
attract
as
into your
well.
life
Me as well.
the very things that you desire. And if you
For
want
sure.
freedom bad enough, the universe will conspire to give you the very thing that you want, right? When you want something
Facts.
that
Facts.
bad, the universe is a co-conspirator with you to order and design the mechanism so that you can achieve what it is that you want to achieve.
Right. See, man, that is perfectly well spoken. I think, for people in today's time, they don't understand the power of affirmations, and it's saying it and it's believing it, but it's also just whenever you have, Inky Johnson said this, he said, whenever you attach to something and you putting your all into it, it's different. You're not going to let nobody take it away. You're going to fight. You're going to do whatever it takes. E.T., just your affirmations of what you tell yourself
Mm-hmm.
every day, what you believe in yourself every day. Like I tell myself, I am a great man. One of the quotes I say every day, the game gonna test you, never fold, stay 10 toes down. It's not what's on you, it's what's in you, and what's in you they can't take away.
That's right.
I got that from Nipsey Hussle. I say these affirmations to myself. I'm gonna have the #1 podcast in the world. I'm gonna be global. I'm gonna help millions of people. I'm gonna give back to my community. These are all things that I tell myself, and for the people that's out there that you have a faith or you have a dream or you just want something, and it don't even have to be a dream. It could just be getting better and leveling up as a person. And if you tell yourself every day, I am going to be better, I am going to do better, the universe will help and put things and people in line for you to accomplish that. The only thing you have to do is stick to your word and stay consistent, but also keep God in your talks. Don't believe in where you at. Whatever situation you in right now, that is just a current situation. That's not your final destination. There's a difference. So when you say these affirmations and you continue to push and you continue to strive, you'll not only get the confidence and the faith, but other people will see and trust and believe in your dream as well, and they're more willing to help you.
Absolutely. In 1997, walking down the hallway in Greenhaven Prison, a brother by the name of Omar had just got his conviction overturned and he was about to go home. And we were passing each other's path. And he's an older brother that had been down a while. And he looked at me and he said, young blood, man, I always see you doing your thing. You're down there in the law library. He said, listen, man, I just won and I'm going back down and I'm walking out the door. He said, but I'm going to tell you something. Always remember this. Persistence overcomes resistance. And a few months ago, I seen this same brother because he works in the barber shop not far from where I reside.
Right.
And I said to him, I said, do you know that you made a statement to me many, many years ago that stood with me over 25, 26 years ago. And he said, what's that? I said, you said this to me in the hallway. He said, man, you remember that? I said, do I remember that? I internalized it. Not only did I remember it, I internalized it. I put it on my wall. I lived it day in and day out. It wasn't just words, because words have power, right? Because everything that we see that's tangible first came from a thought. And then it was spoken, and then it was created, right? Yeah, and so I kept those words, and I hugged the brother, and we shed a tear together, because I'm gonna tell you something. That point in my life was a really tough time. You're just coming upstate. I went upstate in 1996, so you're still trying to find your way. You're still in the yard, trying to figure it out, trying to see how do I survive and how do I navigate 37 and a half to life for a crime I didn't commit in New York State maximum security prison. How do I navigate that? And it was, older brothers that I watched, that I learned from, classes like the Resurrection Study Group that made me sit down and reflect on my history and see that the prison industrial complex was just an extension of chattel slavery. And it was designed to do just what it's doing. It's not broken. It's designed to prepare us to continue to work free labor. Right? You have Auburn. Auburn in New York State is the first maximum security built. They make license plates in Auburn, which saves New York State hundreds of millions of dollars, because you got prisoners working for 10 cents, 15 cents an hour to prepare and make license plates. And they justify it through the 13th Amendment that says, you're free unless you get convicted of a crime. So slavery ain't never went nowhere, right? It's just slavery by another name. You see?
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
So when you get that cheap labor, America was built on capitalism. So that cheap labor is what allows them to thrive, right? So what we got to do is we got to educate our young people and help them understand what the prison industrial complex is all about. And we got to disrupt and dismantle it, right? We got to get out there and organize. We got to mobilize, and we got to agitate and say, listen, we want change, because change is only going to come about through us. That's why I refuse to not be there for other brothers that I left behind. Part of my life works is to continue to help men and women who are incarcerated, especially our sisters who have been victims of domestic violence, substance abuse, and should not be incarcerated, mental health crisis that so many of them have, and the traumas that they've been through, that we've been through. No one looks at that. They say, well, he should be all right. The trauma that we've been through. And I'm a huge advocate for therapy. Right? I had therapy the first few months. Yes, I'm about to go back into therapy. I find a nice therapist that I think I can communicate and mesh well with. I want to go back into therapy again, because I think it's important. I think it's important for those of us who have dealt with so much trauma, because no one goes through the prison industrial complex and comes out unscathed. No one goes to solitary confinement and comes out unscathed. No one grows up in impoverished neighborhoods and comes out unscathed, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about perpetual trauma that young black and brown boys and girls have been experiencing hundreds of years, and we continue to experience, because poverty is violence. Yeah. Poverty is violence. That's why our communities are over-policed, because if you over-police somewhere, you're going to find something wrong, right? Because we got to keep those numbers up behind these prison walls in order to justify those jobs that upstate New York has built their communities off of, the prison system. So we got to disrupt, dismantle, and we got to educate. We got our job is never ending, but I'm up for the task, and it's what we got to do as young brothers like you that are up for the task, that are sharing the word, sharing the information. So important what you're doing, man. And I commend you. It's an honor to see a brother like you doing what you're doing, man, and being resilient and knowing that you just got to keep moving forward and putting your best foot forward day in and day out, and creating a better life for yourself, and you lifting people up as you climb.
For sure. And like I said, that speaks a million words, and that's what it's about. Like how you said, you go back and you give out the knowledge, and you give out the information, and you try to put your hand out and help people. And that's the same thing as far as I want to do with mental health, because I feel like even with the youth, and I want to get into this topic with you, as far as you said something about during one of the pods, you said I think it was you and your lawyer, y'all and Joe Rogan, and you said, yeah, I don't like when people is behind me. And that came from prison. But I think about today as we go into these different communities, as we go into these properties and we see these kids that, you know, and poverty is kind of like a culture. You know, you a street dude, you a thug, you got to be tough. You got to walk in these in certain lights. And, you know, some people that live in these corporate offices, they say, well, dang, like, why is it like that? Or how can you, but sometimes your circumstances force you to have a demeanor to survive. And I want to get you to talk about the mentality of that, of getting out and just being able to enjoy yourself, but also the kind of trauma, like, man, hold on, like, let me switch seats because, you know, behind me, like I done went through so much. Because you see, in today's time, I'm gonna just keep it real. See, people that's young, I got an old soul, but they think going to jail is cool. I put in this time, oh yeah, man, I did a bid and I come out of there, but they don't understand how you could do something you think is so small, but the system will grab you and they'll take your life from you. So some kids' mentality these days is, oh, I'll do this, man. I'll go do a quick 10, but you think it's gonna be 10. That's what you facing, but then they give you that 37 or they give you that 47, and now you in there, you stuck. So
I'll give you that 10 and you turn it into 40 because you gangbanging and you wind up hurting somebody or you wind up taking somebody's life. That happens all the time, right? You see, so many of our people in the ghettos and the inner cities of America, they're traumatizing in and of themselves. When you come up in the housing projects, man, and you don't know where your next meal is coming from, right? You don't know if there's going to be a shootout outside, right? You know the cops done came and swept up 4 or 5 of your homeboys, and you begin to normalize this. See, no one's told you that this is violence, man. This is psychological violence that's being put upon you, right? For no choice of your own. You see, poverty. There's so many dynamics that come with poverty. Impoverished neighborhoods are plagued with crime-generative factors that develop and create crime-generative attitudes and behaviors. And our young people begin to adapt these mindsets and normalize them. And our job is to tell them, brother, that ain't normal. Our job is to tell them, oh, how do I help you take that? How do I just take that mindset of survival and switch it off and turn on that mindset of thriving? In the book, The Body Keeps the Score, they talk about the reptilian part of the brain, which is always in survival mode. Right, and that's how they want, you know, that's how a person in the ghetto is. That's how a person coming out of prison is. That's that trauma, right? Those adverse childhood experiences, that perpetual trauma has you always on guard, you see? In survival mode. You should be able to live in a world where you can thrive and not just simply survive. So I always try to tell my young sisters and brothers that, you know, it ain't about surviving, it's about thriving, right? How do we change that mindset and get you into a mode where you say, okay, well, these are the goals and the objectives that I've set for my life, and this is the way I want to thrive, right? How do I get from point A to point B? And we try to pull our young people with us, and we try to lead by example and let them see that you have a right to thrive, right? Because you live on the margins of society doesn't mean that you should be overlooked, right? And the prison system, when we take this jail, Rikers Island, you know, Rikers Island is almost like a rites of passage to our young people because the trauma is normalized for them. They've experienced it their whole life. Meanwhile, you take a young white kid out the suburbs and you put him on Rikers Island, man, he's like a fish out of water because he ain't never experienced this level of trauma. He can come outside, he can leave his door open, right? He can play in the street, and he's relatively fine and relatively safe. Right? Even when you have mass school shootings where, you know, you have a deranged person that comes in and shoots up a school. Oftentimes in those particular neighborhoods, like the Parklands in Florida, what happens after those shootings is you have trauma units come out. You have counselors come out and talk to these young kids. You know why? Because they don't want these kids to normalize that behavior and think that, oh, that's every day in America, that's normal. They don't want those kids in those suburbs to feel and live in a way that they feel like they're just merely surviving. So when we go to school and we know Day done been shot, or we done seen Day uncle shot last week on the block while we was on our way home from the store, ain't nobody send no grievance counselors to me or Trey. Ain't no grievance counselors coming out there saying, well, we got to talk to these kids so that they, you know, based on what they've seen and what they've witnessed throughout the course of their lives, we don't want them to normalize this stuff. We want them to understand and say, that is abnormal, and I need to stay away from that. I need to reject that. I need to speak against that. and not internalize it like that's a part of my life.
Yeah, yeah.
You see?
I feel like, man, 100%. And the crazy thing is, I was thinking about this as you were speaking. I had to talk about this with one of my friends, but it was basically like, I was like, growing up as a Black man, we automatically are going to get trauma because of what our ancestors went through. So if our parents are not in the best situation, or they just trying to make it or whatever, we're not like, in the Black community, mental health is just being talked about. But there's been mental health forever. But now the light is there. But understanding that even the people that we look up to, as far as like my mom and them, like I realized, damn, y'all ain't even getting no counseling. Like you might need therapy because you went through some traumatic situation. But also, you said a point in there. You said whenever something happens in suburbs, they send people to make sure the trauma feels that that's not normal. I feel like Black people, we traumatize ourselves sometimes into thinking stuff normal. You're not supposed to feel nothing. Hey, what you doing? You going to school? Boy, you better go get you some money. You hit the block, get you, man, hold on, wait, you want to do this? You want to hold the camera? You better hold this gun. And we deem and we give people that light to say that that's cool. And I think that we fuel and we gas that up. And that is a situation to where, why isn't it cool to be a person behind the camera? Why isn't it cool to be a politician? Why isn't it cool to step out of the light and do other things to where our community, like if you think about a Black man, and this is just me keeping it 100, you think of an athlete. You think of we athletic, we're strong, we fighters. But what about astronauts? What about lawyers? What about businessmen? What about therapy? Even the therapist thing, it's only like 0.3, 0.4% of Black men in therapy. And whenever I knew the numbers and I started learning, I'm like, oh my God. And then just being in that situation of having people see me for my race and not see me for who I am. And what I mean by that is, I'm a person that my family come from the trenches. Mm-hmm. Me, when I was growing up, you ain't walk out like that. Like people wasn't proud to say that they stood on business, whatever they stood on business. But my grandfather always told me, like, that's not cool to say where you come from or know that you've been. If it pops up, then you handle your business. But you want to be presented as a man before anything. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like sometimes within people want to, they want to come in with the real raw or coming from the streets and all that. But whenever we go home, or, people that's on the block, man, they trying to get out of that. So if you a person that you walk around with that, your family, they really don't want to be there. You don't want to see your mama have to, struggle for things. You don't want to see your mama have to come home 2 hours, 3 hours, get back on the road and go to work. Like, you don't want to see that. And that's just being honest. But we deem ourselves into saying, dang, man, why would you go do that instead of doing the hard things? It's easy to pick up a gun. It's easy to rob somebody. It's not easy to take your mom out of a situation. It's not easy to take your family generation and show them something different. It's not easy to take your nieces and nephews to places and give them knowledge that they would never even think of, flying them to different countries and things like that. And I'm still on my mission of doing that. I'm not going to sit up here and say that I'm perfect, but I know that I'm going to either achieve it or I'm going to die. That's how I think, and that's my mentality.
You're doing it right now. What you're doing is you're showing younger people and adults who think that it's okay to romanticize poverty and violence. Right. And oftentimes we do that as a defense mechanism to help pull us through it, right? But what you're doing now is you're helping people understand that entrepreneurship is about it's cool. Entrepreneurship is gangster.
Yeah,
that's gangster. Yeah. Education is gangster.
For sure. Being smart, being educated. Right. Yeah, for sure.
And lifting your people up is gangster, right?
Right.
Being spiritually rooted and grounded that's cool. That's slick. So we got to make being smart, being educated, being entrepreneurs, being visionaries. We have to make that what it means to be the new tough. That's the new gangster, right?
Right.
The reality is, where we come from, it's easier for a young person to get a gun than it is to get a scholarship or to get a job.
You're right. Yeah.
Or to get an adequate education, not an inferior education, but an adequate education, right?
Yeah.
It's much easier because it's accessible to our young people. You see? And we don't manufacture that stuff. We don't manufacture guns, right? But we know that they're there and they're in our neighborhoods, right? And they're pervasive, they're everywhere. So in order for you to confront and deal with the systemic and the structural racism that we deal with, you have to understand that in order for capitalism to thrive, you have to have an underclass, right? You know, black people have been marginalized, you know, before that we were enslaved, that we were marginalized and we had to fend for ourselves and build ourselves up. Right. So it's up to brothers like yourself and myself to continue to spread that word, to educate. I often think about Dr. Kenneth P. Clark and his wife, Mamie Phibbs. And I like to give Mamie Phibbs her props because when you really study the history of both doctors, husband and wife, Kenneth P. Clark and Mamie Phibbs, when you study the history of the doll test that they created in the late 1930s, early 1940s, they were also very close with Malcolm X, our brother, our shining prince, developed that doll test. And when you look at how even in 2010, 2015, when they implemented the same test on a group of young girls and asked them, which doll is pretty? Which doll do you like? And they all chose the white doll with the blonde hair. And they said, why? And they said, because that one is good and that one is pretty. And they said, well, what about the black one? They said, that one's bad and it's ugly. And then they asked the child, well, which one do you look like? And they said the black. So when you suffer from the pathology of internalized racism and you begin to see yourself, a lot of people think it's you know, say, oh, that's just talk. It ain't just talk, because what overturned Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, when Brown versus Board of Education overturned the separate but equal clause, which was put into place, it was because of that expert testimony by Dr. Kenneth P. Clark and his study of the dolls, showing that blacks had suffered from the pathology of internalized racism. Meaning, in our language, we say, man, brother, you hate yourself, right? You see me and you see yourself and you despise what you see when you look in the mirror. So I look like you and you despise me too. So we got to break the chain of psychological slavery, right? Because Steve Bantu Biko said, and I'm paraphrasing, Brother Bantu Biko from South Africa, the great South African leader who was killed by prison guards in prison in South Africa in 1977, said that the greatest weapon of the oppressed is the mind of the oppressed. So the fact that your mind set allows you to perpetuate a cycle of violence, a cycle of, you know, we talk about generational poverty, right? Sure. Where generations of families have, you know, passed on an impoverished mindset to their youth, right? Because they've been in survival mode for generations. So they impart that onto their youth. It's up to us to break that chain and break that cycle, because it can be broken. And it's all about mindset. It's all about how you view the world, how you see yourself. And sometimes it takes you just closing that door and spending quality time with yourself and getting to know yourself and having that self-talk and saying, I don't want to experience what our ancestors experienced. How do we break those chains? I want to do something different. And we got to make education, entrepreneurship, we got to make these things cool again, man. So that young people can see it and say, that's what I want to do, man. I want to do what Trey doing, man. I like what he doing out there. I want to do what King Trey doing, man. I ain't, you know, this gang banging, this busting my gun, this running wild. That's not what's happening, man. Because guess what? The penitentiary always got room for you, right?
Sure.
And this
and
is
the graveyard too.
Graveyard too.
I read a quote that said the graveyard would never overflow.
That's right. And the sad part about it is the system is premised on the idea that they need to rehabilitate people when they go into prison. Mm-hmm. But when you go into prison, you're removed from being a human to being a number. So you can't rehabilitate and dehumanize at the same time. You just can't do it, right? You can't dehumanize me and then expect to rehabilitate me.
I definitely get that point. And just to add on that, because you said a lot, but one of the things that really caught me was, or just I want to bring to the table, the people are out there, the word growth. We talked about it. We done talked about it all this pod, but the word growth. If you in the streets and you doing that, I'm not judging you. All I'm saying is it has to be a growth point. If you in the streets, what is your goal? If you just in the streets just to be in the streets, you only got two options. You're going to be dead or you're going to be in jail. So if you are doing these things, I'm not condoning saying it's right, but you got to have that growth and you got to have accountability to say, I'm doing this, but I got to get out. You got to have a plan. And again, I don't judge nobody, but I look at people that was in those situations and they elevated and they grew out. You talk about a Jay-Z, you talk about a Young Jeezy. Rest in peace to Young Dolph, who I've been listening to just so much. Young Dolph, man, shout out Dolph, rest in peace Dolph. But Dolph, his mindset, whenever I listen to him, or just his interviews, he was all about ownership, and he was all about saying, man, everybody want to do everything else in the streets. They want to hate, they want to shoot, they just want to be in shootouts. What happened to getting money? Because at the end of the day, that's what you doing stuff for. If you just out there trying to be a soul seeker, you taking people's lives, you know what come with that. But if you really trying to better your family and get your family up out of that, you got to have accountability and take growth within yourself to make the choices to get out of that. And I'm not condoning no bad choices. I'm just saying be real with yourself. Don't let the factors in the situations keep you in that to where you making all this money. You got 20,000 sitting in your house and you thinking about a re-up. No, think business, think long term. Do your research. Who do you listen to? See, the thing about people that's in the streets and just people in life who think that they don't know what they want to do. You listen to people every day, whether it's a podcast, whether it's music, whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends, but you see an example of who you want to be in your life. That's close to you. You naturally see it. You naturally see it. So if you can see and you can hear, you can then do the research. You can read books. There's books out there for everything. So if you have that knowledge at your hands, just know that you have the power to take it and push it more. Just because you're in an environment, just because you not first class or you mid class or you in poverty or whatever, if you listen to a Jay-Z, you got answers to a book to get you somewhere. If you listen, take the people who's around you. The person who makes the most money, who you adore, that is your baseline of where you could be at in life just if you just do what they do. And if you want to take it to a higher level, who else in your life do you pay attention to or who you admire? You take that, then you do your research. What are they reading? But
you also got to remember that when you talk about the Jay-Z, when you talk about those who have transcended a particular lifestyle, you also got to look at what they were up against then and what we up against now. You see, social media is a beast.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah. Social media is tough. Social media is tough.
And it's designed to make us addicted to it.
Yeah.
It's strategically designed for that purpose, right? So, all this stuff has a plan to it. So when you tell a person to come off social media and read a book, we live in a society, a microwave society, man. Right. Everybody wants instant gratification. So do I read a book or do I just watch something on social media? That may not necessarily be healthy or good for me. But I'm going to tell you this, right? And I hope that people get this because it's so important. Black people oftentimes use social media as a source of entertainment. So you will have countless young Black sisters that will create these dances, and then their white counterparts would master those dances as well, and they would become millionaires off of TikTok, right? Because of their views and their ad dollars and their YouTube and everything else, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is, while we so busy using social media as a source of entertainment, right? Young white kids are being taught in the MITs, right, and in the Harvards and the Yales to use social media as a source of empowerment, you see, and not a source of entertainment, you see? And that's the difference. Malcolm said he's not ashamed or it's not a disgrace to have once been a criminal. He said, but it is a disgrace to continue to be one. So if you've done some wrong in your life, which we all have, it's one thing to have done that and to have transcended that. It's one thing to continue in that cycle, right? So what we asking our people to do is cut that cord, man, and break that cycle, because we know where that leads. We know where that is taking us. We know what avenue and what road that's taking us. And as you said, we have countless examples, but our biggest example was probably our brother Malcolm X, right? Who went in as Detroit Red and came out as El-Shabazz, came out as Malcolm X and then went on to be Shabazz later on, right? So different phases of his life, different things in his life that allowed him to transcend. And that came from studying, that came from learning, that came from educating himself. He had time to do that while he was in the penitentiary. He didn't serve time. He allowed time to serve him by getting into himself and getting into them books and getting in and studying something that he enjoyed studying.
And man, and again, before, because it just hit me. I love Malcolm. Read his book and everything. For the people who don't, do people realize how hard it is to be incarcerated at that time? Whenever Malcolm got out and Malcolm was doing these interviews, he was doing interviews with Harvard graduates, and he knew more knowledge than them. And at the things, they were trying to manipulate him to say certain things, manipulate him to do certain things. And his mental was so strong, and he learned so much that he was outsmarting them. And see, now that's an example of, we just talked about, not allowing a situation. It's a current situation. It's not your final destination. Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, it's temporary. You're in a place, he made the most out of a situation where people go there and they lose all faith. They say, dang, well, my life is done. Or they just go there and they crash out. Like you said, they go in there, do 10, you gangbanging, now you 40 and 50. He took what he needed to do. He got in that library and he learned. And that's why I love Malcolm X. I love his mindset. I love what he stood for. And he's one of the greats. Definitely to me. He one of them ones. But I mean,
you can take the harshest circumstances to become your best self. And this is what our brothers have done throughout the course of history. And there are countless brothers who are right now who are directly involved in the movement, who have taken their time while they was incarcerated. My brother Derek Hamilton, who was a legal genius, served 23 years wrongfully convicted, countless years in solitary confinement. I got a brother now that that is very dear to my heart, a brother by the name of Keith Lamar. Keith Lamar did the first guy that's sitting on death row for 31 years. In fact, it's his birthday today, and I want to say happy birthday to Keith Lamar, who was on death row in Ohio, wrongfully convicted for 5 jail homicides in the Lucasville riot that he did not commit. So anybody within the sound of my voice, man, you can look up Keith Lamar and give him as much support as you can possibly give him. That's one of the brothers that we are fighting for, one of our warriors, one of our brothers who have transformed his life. He's done a jazz album. He actually has a book club that he does in a school right out here in New York, in Manhattan, from death row. And he's been in solitary confinement for 31 years. And the resilience and the strength of this brother, when you speak to him, is literally just unbelievable, man. That a human being can endure such hardship and still be standing strong and standing in his convictions and fighting his wrongful conviction diligently. I had the honor of going to the French embassy in Washington, D.C., and having a conversation with Dr. King's son about capital punishment and why it needs to be dissolved across the country, across the world. I mean, who are we to take a life, right? Who are we to condone taking someone's life, right? Much less so many of our brothers that are wrongfully convicted, sitting behind prison bars. So it's a lot of brothers who took that blueprint from our brother Malcolm and transformed their lives and their mindsets while they were incarcerated. And again, to have committed a bad act, to have engaged in some level of criminality doesn't make a person a bad person, because we're not going to take a person who robs someone and say he's nothing but a robber, right? That's still a human being. And he can transform his life and he can become better than he was yesterday. It's all about opportunity. It's all about mindset and just getting around the right people that are willing to help you nurture that mindset. Certainly, you're going to have those challenges, along your path that are going to become, discouraging and tell you, well, I'm going to take the easy way out. But see, that's the easy way, man. Having access to guns in the hood, we're taking the easy way out. Like what's easy is not always good. You can find that little resilience within yourself, man, and do something different and something better, because you can become better. Right? And you just have to really begin to see yourself as something greater than what people have actually told you were, or greater than the circumstances that you find yourself in. Because prison is just that, a circumstance. You can overcome that. Your mind can travel, and you can overcome that, and you can get into your best self even when you're in the worst of situations.
I love that. Oh, man, so much knowledge, so much power, man. Thank you. We got 2 more questions. I'm gonna get you out of here, man. We great pod, phenomenal. I'm just glad that you came on, man. This is a great convo. I wanna switch gears here. I wanna talk to you about that feeling of seeing your people whenever you got out, I heard you reference it, got to see your mom, and you said, man, it felt like heaven. I want you to describe that, man. Just that moment of, man, seeing them doors open and, you seeing people that you love, and just the whole moment of just when they walking you out, like, start there and then to the finish, man. Like, I want to know whenever they got you out your bunk and you walking, and your mental of just knowing, like, man, I'm about to walk out of here.
It was surreal. It was something that I spent thousands of nights dreaming about, thousands of nights crying myself to sleep, and waking up and saying, well, the rain fell from the heavens, which is the mind, and now it's time for the plants to grow. So it was always time to get up and grow every morning. And so that moment was surreal. I think about what my brother Rashad Rouhani, who has shared with me years ago, when he said, I believe it's in the Holy Quran or it's a hadith, where he said, heaven is at the feet of your mother, right? He said, heaven is at the feet of your mother. And, I experienced that firsthand. It was like heaven, being able to walk out into the arms of the person who gave birth to me, who stood by me from day one, been supportive, been my rock, been the wind beneath my wings. And every phone call, look, I'm always ending with, keep on praying, man. We going, God's going to work it out. That little bit of encouragement, those kind words, and that genuine love, right? You'd be surprised. Love is transformational, right? Just like relationships are. You can get into a good relationship with somebody, man, and change your whole life around, man. Change your whole worldview, because you're learning so much. As we say in the hood, you're picking up so much game from the sister or the brother that you bonded with, that it's changing your mindset and changing your worldview. Relationships are transformational, man. Get around people who want to pick you up and lift you up. It makes you feel like there's nothing in the world that you can't do. And that's how my mother has always made me feel. So, that moment of, I think about it all the time. I think about the day that I walked out the penitentiary, because, believe it or not, after 29 years incarcerated, they gave me $40 in a bus ticket. That's the standard. That's what everybody get. New York State Penitentiary, I don't care if you did 40, 50 years, right? We got another brother that just did 50, and he's on his way out. K.O. Smitty, they giving him $40 in the bus ticket. $40 in the bus ticket, man. That's what you get. No one tells you about how to navigate society, how to deal with an iPhone. They don't even tell you how to take a bus at this point. They just give you $40 in the bus ticket and say you're on your own after being in there 29 years, right? Spending more time in the penitentiary than I spent in the free world, because I went to the penitentiary at 22, 23 and spent 29 in there. Damn. So there were no efforts to rehabilitate, because you can't rehabilitate and dehumanize at the same time, as I said to you before. So walking out of there was like a brand new baby being born. That's like my mother was giving birth all over again. And the joy of seeing her is indescribable. And being around her and being able to break bread with her now and be around her is the greatest joy of my life, by far, because I know countless men who have lost their mothers, fathers, while incarcerated. It's a brother from Baltimore, Philip Alvin Jones. He's incarcerated. He was incarcerated at 19. He's been in 34 years. And we fighting to try to help him get a second chance. No homicide, no one's dead. He got 34 years in since he was 19 years old. He's done everything you can do to become better, and he's still sitting in prison. This is not about rehabilitation. This is punitive. This is vengeance, man. This is cruel and unusual punishment. You took a child and put him in there for 34 years, and he still has, he has 2 life sentences, and no one is killed. No one died. It's just the system is so draconian. It's so oppressive that if brothers like myself who have gone through it don't come out here and advocate to disrupt and dismantle the system as we know it, it'll remain the same and continue to crush our people for generations to come. And early in my incarceration, I remember a good friend of mine by the name of Lawrence Bartley. We were in Green Haven together. And he came outside one day and he said, yo, man, I just quit my program working in industry. Industry is where they build, in Green Haven, they were building sofas and upholstery and different things like that. About 30 cents an hour. Guys work there, try to save their money so they can have commissary and survive. And Lawrence said, I quit. Why you quit? He said, because they had a truck come in and they had us trying to get us to unload cell bars. We said, what? He said, yeah, they want us to start building cells in Greenhaven now. And I refuse to do that. I ain't going to build no cell for my young brothers and sisters that's coming through. I'm not building no cell for my son. So the next day he went to the box and he was shipped out to prison. So I say all that to say, the system is designed for us to continue this cycle on unless we take a stand and say, I'm not doing it. This is my integrity. You're going to send me to the box. You're going to ship me 9 hours away from home. Okay, cool. But I'm not doing that. Right? And we got, as men, we stand 10 toes down. That's standing 10 toes down. You know, when I seen that, I said, I saw integrity. I saw courage. Not a guy saying, I'm going to pick a knife up and stab somebody. You know, this guy stood firm and said, I'm going up against the system. I'm not building any cells. And if you want to put me in the box, let's go. I'm ready to go. But that I'm not doing. And it's brothers like that who I watched when I came to the penitentiary, even though he's younger than me and I knew him from the street. I said, this is, you know, that's what men do. These are the positions we need to take. And I don't know if he even realizes the impact that movement that he started had on me even to this day. You know, I hold him in high regard. But, you know, you learn from your brothers, man, those who are really firm in standing true to their convictions and integrity. And those of us who have fallen by the wayside that we need to lift up and pick up, because we always got to lift as we climb. And that's what we're doing now. We're trying to lift as we climb, man. So I hope I was able to answer your question. I know it was a long one, but
nah, you good, man.
My mom, it's like, there's really no words to describe the joy that I felt walking out of there and being in the presence of my mother.
That's love. I think that quote that you said, man, I don't remember. That was tough though. Like, I think life starts at your mother's feet. Like that one was, man. That's I felt that one
heaven,
line.
Yeah, heaven is at the feet of your mother.
Heaven is at the feet of that, man. The way that I feel about my mom, and that's why I carry myself in the light that I carry myself in. Am I perfect? No, but I told myself a long time ago, seeing my people that's in my family get locked up and stuff, I said I'd never have my mom in a courtroom or at a graveyard. And that's always been like my mentality. Like, I don't ever want my mom to have to come to see me in a courtroom chained up. And that, for me, that's my flex. You know, when people say, oh, you ain't, yeah, but my mom ain't never went to no courtroom. My mom ain't never had to go to no graveyard for me or the people that I associated myself with, like losing their life to, you know, violence and stuff. Like, and I know a bunch of people, but it's just, I would never allow myself to hop in that life, even though it was close to me, and put my mom through certain type of things. And she worked so hard to want me to do better, you know? So, man, I definitely get that. I want to, two more things. I'm going to let you go, man. Sorry, we're low over time. My bad, man.
It's all good. It's all good,
love,
Trey. It's all
love,
good, bro.
Love. My bad. Oh, man, your lawyer, Josh Duban, right? Man, first off, man, reading up on him, this is just words for him. I definitely just want to put that out there. But having somebody who believed in you like that, who trusted in you like that, who had faith in you like that. Because, see, whenever people that get incarcerated, sometimes the people that you think who love you the most don't call you, they don't write you. But to meet somebody so random, and for him to take the energy and like really sit there and fight and come see you. And, you know, he talked a lot on the pod, on one of the pods, and he was talking about some of the things he's seen whenever he went seeing you. And that's traumatized. Like, people got to understand, it ain't just about him helping you in these courtrooms. This man was in there when y'all had lockdown. This man was in there whenever things was just at his worst, and he still came to see you. So, man, to him, I want to say a shout out to him. I don't know him. I will hope to meet him. He's a tremendous person. But as far as just tell me what that meant for you to pray every night, pray for years and days, and then God send you somebody like that in your life who bless you.
Well, he sent me a few, right?
A few. Oh, well, my bad. Yeah.
He sent me a few. He sent me Josh Duban. He also, before that, he sent me Steve Zyman, and he also sent me Elizabeth Felber, and he also sent me Derek Hamilton, and he also sent me Alfonso Riley. You know, and he also sent me John Ramsey, who did 33 years and went home and became a private investigator. They all became instrumental in trying to save my life, in trying to free, right, another slave on the plantation, because we were enslaved in the prison industrial complex. Make no mistakes about it. They were all instrumental in my liberation and continue to be there and supportive for me. As I said, Steve Zyman was just instrumental in today, again, getting 2 more guys convicted for murder, Clemency, and about 11 others pardoned. So, and Derek Hamilton is always in the courtroom, of course, from New York to Jersey, Connecticut to Florida. This guy is fighting cases left and right, along with Jason Flom, who's another huge hero of mine, who was the first person to, put my story out there in the Rolling Stone back in 2020. Jason Flom, he's awesome. And of course, Josh Duban, who continues to fight hard, for so many others, as well as myself, and Elizabeth Felber, Alfonso Riley, all of these people who understand that collectively we can change the system, and we got to start freeing one person at a time. I extend my oceans of gratitude to each and every one of them. And my family, my loved ones, and, the people in my life who have been meaningful and impactful over the course of my years. And my genuine friends, my comrades, right? I got good comrades, man, that, been instrumental in my life, in a very meaningful way over the course of my years, both inside and out, because that saying that say ain't no friends in the penitentiary, that's a lie, because I met a whole bunch of good guys that today I consider my friend. Victor Roberts is one of them. Met the guy in the joint. That's my friend to today. Consider these guys my friends. So, and so many others that I can name. So it's real, man. Jermaine Archer, LaRon, so many of my brothers from Sing Sing, from Green Haven. These guys, you got some solid guys, man, that care about humanity. They care about their people. And they right out here right now, Trey, and they doing the work. They doing the work to free men and to free other women. Shout out to every last one.
Shout out to all them facts. Man, last part of the show, it's called Decoding the Real. This is where I give a real moment, and everybody talking about giving flowers. I call it Decoding the Real. But man, I want to say, man, thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you so much for your fight. Thank you so much for you fighting all your challenges in life. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for continuing to push. Thank you for getting out here and learning and trying to adapt and still telling your story, still pulling back, still shouting out those people who are wrongly convicted and who are behind those walls. I want to tell you, man, that you genuinely inspire me. I'm so grateful to have met you and just even had a conversation. Even more grateful for you to come on my pod. But man, not only your story is great and people clamor on that, but you as a person, bro, you really one of one, man. Shout out to you for real. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. And young brother, keep doing what you're doing. If you need my support, man, in any way, and I can be there for you, man, I'm here. Pick up the phone, we chop it up, and we'll figure it out. You inspire me. And, the work that you're doing as a young brother is, it's important work, man. And like I said, always let brothers know that they can use these platforms as a source of empowerment and not just entertainment. So I commend you on the extraordinary work you're doing, and you changing lives, man. And it means a lot. So to be there for you, you are me. Yeah, you me, man.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Being there for you is being there for myself.
I appreciate that for sure.
That's real talk, Ken.
Man, real talk. Like I said, I'll definitely be in New York. I was already planning to go, so we'll have to set that up in a couple months, man. I definitely would like to meet you in person, have dinner, do the things that we talked about. But for sure,
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, look, that's a wrap. Make sure y'all follow and subscribe. Make sure y'all follow him on all his socials. I had those pulled up, and y'all already know, man. Be different.
Follow my man King Dre, man. He the real deal, man. Much love and respect, King.
Yo.
Oceans of gratitude. Peace.
Yes, sir.
Applause, I ain't done yet. Immortality got me weary since Kobe died. I got this watch on my arm, but I'll never know.